For public participation on the impending impeachment of one Rigathi, the Deputy President. Kenyans were with great clarity and unity, united in their voice, telling both Ruto and Gachagua that they stand impeached. They came in as a pair and they'll go home as a pair. That was the message of Kenyans. Indeed, it was very impressive that Kenyans were not diverted from the pressing national issues to power games. And they were able to put out their pressing needs, which should be looked after rather than the power games of impeachment. Our Constitution is the supreme embodiment of our collective will as a nation. It's a covenant entrusted with the protection of our sovereignty, democracy, and social justice. It is the solemn duty of the President as the nation's highest custodian of this sacred document, assisted by his deputy, to safeguard its principles with unwavering fidelity. Today, as we stand at this historic juncture, where the actions of President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi constitute not only a gross dereliction of duty by the presidency, but a calculated assault on the foundational pillars of our republic. The presidency and entire government were impeached by Kenyans, as far as we are concerned, on the 25th of June this year, during the Gen Z protests. The exercise therefore arranged for the impeachment of the Deputy President ironically turned into a reminder of the entire presidency and government that they stand impeached by Kenyans. And I've already said that if they hoped to divert attention from the critical issues of the day, they were not able to do that. They failed miserably. And lest we forget, we want to remind Kenyans of the Ruto regime had hoped to divert Kenyans from the economic sabotage that is going on. The shaded deal volunteers who were seeking to fish for more bodies at that quarry. But so many things are happening that we actually no longer appear to be as outraged as we should be. We must demand that that quarry be drained for Kenyans to know whether there are more bodies lying there, and for answers to be given as to who is murdering and dismembering Kenyans. The Ruto regime had hoped to divert Kenyans from the economic sabotage that is going on. The shaded deal of mortgaging Kenyan's premier gateway, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, to the Adani Group, which is scandal-ridden and against whom questions of malpractices are being raised in many parts of the world. This amounts, the giving of this Adani Group, our premier gateway, without competitive bidding and without public participation or the approval of Parliament, is actually economic sabotage. Jobs stand to be lost, not only at the airport, but also jobs relating to the export of horticultural products. Under this Adani deal, it is the Adani Group who will determine what happens at the airport. It means our many farmers, horticultural farmers, and those employed along that chain will be subjected to higher prices, because the Adani Group have not come as charity workers. They are coming to make money. It means the future of so many has been put in jeopardy. And that is why we call this economic sabotage. The same Adani Group is being given concession over power distribution. Again, this is economic sabotage. We are already suffering very high prices of power. We are subjected to that by KPLC. Now with the Adani Group, we cannot hope that things will be better. They can only be worse. You wonder why a regime would sabotage its own economy. And the only conclusion we can come to is that Adani is a front for cartels, high-placed cartels within the Ruto regime. We have also seen economic sabotage through the deliberate mismanagement of our mineral and marine wealth. Our mineral resources in Kwale, in Taita Taveta, in Busia, in Migori, in Kitui, and many other parts of the Republic, concessions are being given with total opaqueness to foreigners and with deliberate harm being occasioned to the host communities where these minerals are. This cannot be happening unless Adani is but a mere front of cartels within the Ruto regime. And I want to remind us that during the campaigns, Ruto and his supporters were telling people that they are coming to dismantle cartels. It appears they were talking of themselves coming in to remove, if at all there were cartels, and to perfect the art of capturing the state and putting it in the hands of cartels. We've also seen the dismantling of a working health system. You will remember that when the Ruto regime came in, NHIF was a going concern and was working for many Kenyans. I can testify that I know of many poor people who were not only assisted to get quality health services by NHIF, but some were assisted to travel to India for treatment. In the 2 years of the existence of the Ruto regime, NHIF had been run to the ground. Hospitals were no longer accepting NHIF cards, and now since Tuesday come in SHIF, SHIF. We have not forgotten seeing the tears of an old man who had been denied dialysis. But this is just one person. How many others were crying out there, not under the glare of the media, without us knowing? We all know that those who require dialysis, if they don't get it on time, it can lead to untimely death. We do not know how many people and in what manner they have been affected by this clumsy transition from NHIF to SHIF. We also were told that SHIF was coming to expand the health services. We know that is a lie. We have seen indication that SHIF will actually restrict access to health for many. It is raiding the pockets of Kenyans Whereas under NHIF, every Kenyan was required to pay 500 shillings a month. SHIF is requiring employed Kenyans to forego 2.75, literally 3% of their salaries. These are already overtaxed Kenyans, and while their pockets are being raided, the services given by SHIF are wanting. There is information that for dental services, families will only access about 2,000. There is information that for maternity, mothers will only get payment of up to 10,000. Under Linda Mama, in public hospitals, women were accessing maternity services without paying. How many will be forced to deliver away from hospitals? This is a violation of the Constitution, in particular Article 43, which provides that the government of the day will ensure that Kenyans have access to quality health services. We should be transitioning to universal benefit. On the subject of abuse of human rights, the oppressive political climate continues unrelentingly to stifle the voices of citizens and to specifically target around various parts of the country persons, mainly youth, who are marked by the abduction squads during the protests. People have been arrested in Athi River, in Mombasa, in Nairobi, and in many other parts of the country. We are getting a full list. The Ruto regime appears hell-bent on stifling dissent and any enjoyment of civil liberties by citizens. The Constitution, it appears, has been cast aside by Ruto and his ruling elite. You remember his famous statement during his swearing in, "When I put the Bible down." It appears it's not only the Bible he put down, it's also the Constitution that he cast aside. He cast aside the Constitution and the rule of law. The law enforcement agencies, more specifically the National Police Service, have blatantly ignored court orders. We have seen arbitrary arrests, detentions, and arraignment in court on trumped-up charges. Since the start of the peaceful Gen Z protests by patriots who waved our national flag and conducted themselves in a most civil and orderly manner, the police have unlawfully and needlessly caused loss of lives to over 60 people, mainly youth, according to the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and injured hundreds, some grievously, abducted many, some of them turning up dead in morgues, others in abandoned quarries. Further, police have arbitrarily arrested and detained hundreds. Some later released without charges after spending nights in the police cells, and others being arraigned in courts on trumped-up charges, ostensibly to intimidate and inflict maximum fear in the population, so that citizens will fear expressing their views or enjoying or ever joining protests or expressing dissent. So the era of fear is back. on the subject of those who have lost their lives, we cannot be sure they are over 60 or over 100 or 200. You will remember the falsification of records at the city mortuary, where a protester shot in Athi River was listed as an accident victim from Ruto, thereby adding the agony and preventing his parents from being able to trace him expeditiously. How many more falsifications of records? The National Kenya National Commission on Human Rights tells us that there are over 50 people missing. Are they really 50 or more? Are the missing people dead or alive? Because it seems the 25th of June. It's almost 3 months. It is very sad that this is the situation, and we are not seeing any cooperation by the law enforcement agencies, any cooperation from the Ruto regime to establish how many died, to make reparations, to establish the whereabouts of the missing, and bring closure to their families. We are also experiencing a spate of disobedience of court orders. You remember a court order, and those who may not know, issued by the Malindi High Court on the 24th of June this year, and confirmed on the 17th July 2024 after inter-party hearing, meaning the state was represented in the hearing before the confirmation. These orders restrained the police from interfering with peaceful protests, using water cannons, tear gas, live ammunition, rubber bullets, or other crude weapons or draconian measures, and from deploying brute force or any form of violence against persons protesting. Picture this: the order is issued on 24th of June. 25th was the day of massacre of protesters in and around Parliament and other parts of the country, and even within Nairobi. That was the peak, a day after court orders. Police have continued to arrest people arbitrarily. You will recall Nane. People could not access the CBD and other towns in Kenya. There was such heavy police presence, stopping people from gathering together, using tear gas. I went to town and I witnessed use of tear gas unnecessarily. Anywhere they see 10 people, tear gas, arrests. I escaped by a whisker myself. They have been using live bullets countrywide, tear gas and batons to brutalize peaceful protesters and people who are going about their business. The media has not been spared. We saw on camera media people, a lady was shot in Nakuru. In Nairobi, we saw them brutalizing the media, and many others that we have not witnessed in the media, but the complaints have been there. And we are saying it is not enough for the police to have a meeting with the media council or with any other sections of the media. We demand accountability. We demand accountability for violation of human rights, for death, for assault of both citizens and the media. And we must not agree to forget and lower our demands. We are here today to remind Ruto and his regime that we are waiting for officers who are known, whose faces were widely circulated in the media. Some even their false numbers were circulated. When will they be brought to account? When will they get arrested? We commend the NSK, which has at least sued an officer for violation of human rights. And we urge in the absence of any action, positive action by the Ruto regime, that as Kenyans we unite and push for accountability. Remember, this was the main demand of the Gen Z. Accountability across the board in all affairs. We are seeing a period of increased impunity instead of a changed mode of governance. The Ruto regime is not only operating with impunity, but it is also encouraging impunity and thus a breakdown of law and order within the ranks of the police force and high-ranking public officials. This can only bring anarchy to our beloved country, which all people of goodwill must resist with all our might. We must continue to insist on justice for those whose lives were brutally taken, for standing up and exercising their rights as enshrined in the Constitution, and for calling for accountability. Lest we forget, every Kenyan life is sacred, and every drop of blood spilled in the fight for justice must be accounted for. In the light of these grave concerns, we will submit this statement and more details as a formal complaint to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, to the UN Commission on Human Rights, and all other relevant organizations. As a state party to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the UN Charter, and other international instruments, Kenya is obligated to uphold the rights contained therein. Our Constitution demands no less. Kenya is, we will not hesitate to call out these violations on the continental stage and on the international stage, especially in the light of the increased, or rather, of the state having reverted to its default status, and of their using fear as a tool to intimidate and as a strategy to suppress the dissent. This has now become the official policy of the KK regime. As stated above, we have seen arbitrary arrests and abductions continue, targeting those who dare to speak and those who dare to demand accountability. We refuse to remain silent. We refuse to be accomplices to the betrayal of the people of Kenya. We must speak out for those who cannot, for those whose voices have been muzzled by a state determined to criminalize freedom of thought and expression, and to ignore the principles of the Constitution and not giving people a right to be heard. The Constitution they are trampling on demands that we as citizens defend it. It is actually an obligation of every citizen and of every public official to obey, protect and defend the Constitution. We must enjoy the rights that it bestows. We are approaching the 14th anniversary of the promulgation of our Constitution next Tuesday. We must reflect on how far we have strayed from its promises. The human and socio-economic rights enshrined in these documents are under siege by those who swore to protect them. The right to life is under attack. The right to freedom of expression and thought is under attack. The right to fair trial is itself on trial. The right to dignity is being eroded daily, and perhaps most egregiously, the right to education is being sacrificed at the altar of crony capitalism. You will remember that there is now a new method of funding education, and we believe it is deliberately designed to erode access to education. The introduction of the variable scholarship and loan funding model is nothing short of betrayal by people who enjoyed education funded by the state. It shifts the burden of education to the backs of students and their
Haya, sawa, tuchukue miti tupande. I think I should organize for your life story later.
Yako ni anigladi. Yako ni asinti. Saa moja. Yaani saa moja.
Nataka jembe bana majimbo.
Saidia watoto hiyo jembe wasaidiane. Angalia kama sawa ni sawa.
Tupate apige na hapo.
Mkono wake ni chafu. Ndi. Hai pole bana wamekosea.
Yes.
Unajua kuna miti mingi huku wa Japan. Wacha nipande nimalize ni jembe bana.
Anafanya zote.
Na hii mlima mwa mnataka na mhoho. Ndio walio wali.
Sawa mami.
Kwanza ndio inafaa chukuliwe sana.
Yes, hata sweat.
Hajaikiza mti.
Mami.
Chape bendi.
Chanipige Sami. Tutapeleka kwa PCS.
Hii mimi napelekea dua.
Hizi miti nyingi.
Tunaenda tukenda. Tuweke hii. Oh, naweka hiyo.
Niko na mtu.
Wacha nitoke. Kuja kamera uko shua na picha itatoka.
Natoka hiyo. Namwamini. Inapiga na gari. Ya magari.
Wanaikiwa mazingira yao iko.
It is the same count. Bigger count. Bigger count.
Sina utia. Hakuna ingine kama hiyo.
Sami hujapanda miti.
Misherere.
Ai penye tuko tuna
Lengo letu ni kujenga leti. Tutaishi vyema bila matatizo na maafa yote. Wito wetu leo ni kujaza miti kwetu inayofaida, yasafisha hewa tunayosafisha, kupunguza joto, ni makao pia ya wanyama wetu.
Wote ambao wako hapa akiwemo senior wetu hapa ilianza kama Moi Day, siku ambayo ni ya kuwajulia hali na hilo likawa wazo bora zaidi. Ndio maana
mazingira ili waweze kukupea license, na kama uko hivi kuja mpaka kwa ofisi ya NEMA kule kwa county commissioner compound, mtatoka hapa wanashirikiana na CFA lazima tupande miti. Kwa hivyo chiefs na assistant chiefs
Amombima Kela, Assistant Chief Igulu Sub-Location within Mongoma location. Thank you.
Chief Edward Obande, Kushona Sub-Location. Thank you, madam.
I'm the host chief. Thank you, madam. Yes. tuko. Wageni wote karibuni sana na tusaidiane kupanda miti na
Wala wetu makofi. Asante sana Muhisha. Labda chenye naweza sema kwa wananchi kwamba hii mazingira ni yetu. Na washukuru kwa ile ushirikiano ambao mmetoa kwamba tunataka hii mlima Pureti. Mimi ndiye Assistant County Commissioner wa eneo hili. Nichukue nafasi hii kualika na alike introduce timu yake. Karibu ofisa.
Mgeni wetu wa heshima siku ya leo, wananchi wote ambao wako hapa, ningependa kuintroduce my team Kenya Forest Service. Kwa hivyo mahali wako, ningependa wakuja hapa mbele. Kwa hivyo
hello, amjambo wote. Majina naitwa Sajani. Asanteni.